All right, I guess we're live. Right, let's continue with our muscles. I just brought back our reference just to make sure that my previous muscles are lining up with the reference. So, so yeah, I reckon this could come up a bit. There's not a lot of fat up there, is there? So just give a little bit of room for the skin. So skin is also thick. It's not just like paper thin. And yeah, so I said in the last video that we were missing one rib, so I'll have to do that at some point. But everything else, I think it's lining up pretty well. Um, and then when I add the rib, I may have to pull this a little bit higher. So let's hide the reference. So today we'll start with the external abdominal oblique, which covers the rest of the body here. So let's select our latissimus and then also need to check if the latissimus is on the inside. This I'm going to move this slightly inwards. This connects to the side of the femur, but on the inside. So like that. So keep it like that for now. All of these connections I'll have to work out and fix when we do rigging. But for now, as long as the masses are there, it will allow us to continue with the modeling. Okay, now trim dynamic could just flatten it out a little bit. Right. Let's get a sphere. And I'm going to subtool, split unmasked, sorry, split masked, and also rename. Let's call this external abdominal oblique. So this is the muscle that connects to these ribs and goes all the way also sternum and then forms that belly muscle group. So we're gonna pull this one apart. That angle and move it a little bit this way. And so basically this attaches again to a number of different bones. We got the sternum, so, and most of these ribs on the side, and also the pelvis. Uh, Maybe use Moon Elastic to just quickly drag across, shape it like that. So it goes to the bottom of the iliac and to the pubic bone, and then this end really comes down like that, like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's really good for shaping, as you can see. Move elastic. You can also do this and just drag it back out. So I just moved in and then moved out, and it tries to conform to that shape. So yeah, if we were to actually sculpt the details, you'll have a bit of some hooks going on. So let's hide the latissimus dorsi so I can show you that. And there you have a nice big muscle group. So now this end is tricky because we'll have to drag it all the way in. Also the top comes in. And a part of it sticks to the sternum. I think it might even go higher up, but as long as it's attaching to the sternum, which is in the middle, it makes sense. Mm, we could bring this even further down, not the end. Let's undo that. Just this bit here. So the ends will have to start attach to the pubic bone. So as the leg moves and the hips bounce, you see this part stretching and squashing. So the next thing is to dynamesh. Yeah, I'll do. Smooth out. Let's go solo for a bit while we do this. You can take trim dynamic, brush, auto masking, backbase, and just, yeah, flatten it out. And I'm conscious, obviously, to not make it too thin while we're in Dynamesh mode. So, okay, that did work, so no problems. Just going to smooth out this checkered um, pattern we got. So simply click Shift and run it all over the model. So it starts, this is the rib number 4. So you'll have one there, two, three. I think it starts here at number 4. So snake hook is, so it does something like that. Snake hook is just a fancy move that just pulls a small area based on your brush size and pulls only that part. Whereas the move would be, if I did move, well, it sort of moves slightly differently. A snake hook, it quickly, it sort of pinches it. I mean, obviously, if you have smaller brush, you can appreciate it better, like this. And the reason it warns you, not warns you, it asks you to use Sculptus Pro is because as you pull this apart, it will regenerate the topology on the fly, which is very, very cool actually. So it recalculates and adds more polygons to the stretched bit, so you get very neat geometry when you pull this apart. Okay, and now control drag to redynamesh, smooth. Yeah, looks about right. Let's look at the latticemus. Now we can see much more clearly. So the latch can go even further in. So because you don't want this to interfere with the triceps. So just these ends, obviously, we have the humerus here. It does attach to the humerus. So let's undo that. The ends will have to actually come out. That's how you get the stretching when of the lats as it walks. And yeah, that's better. So so it just sits on top of the abdomen. This is why we see a little line as the lion walks, because this latissimus creates that crease just on top of the abdomen, like that. And we can bring this one to close the gap. I'm just smoothing out the topology here a bit. So let's select this guy, and so at the moment polygroups, let's do auto groups like that, and then geometry, zero mesh, uh, just something like 5, keep groups, adapt, and then hit zero mesher. So we're going back to something a bit low res. And there we have it. That looks good. And you can see the silhouette up here. The black is already shaping up really nicely. So we'll start with the arms now. So here, we can begin with the deltoid. Let's do the deltoid. So this is again quite a important muscle because it connects to the spine of the scapula. And as we make this, we may have to adjust some muscles, like the lats and stuff. That's okay. So I'm going to highlight the scapula, sorry, not the latissimus, and just simply insert the sphere, split, split the mast points, and rename this to be deltoid. Also, latissimus got a little number at the end. We will get rid of that. And there we are, nice and clean naming. So we can elongate this, squash it, and then stretch it, make it more of a capsule, like that. And now we can push and pull apart. Right, okay. Why is this? Anyway, okay, so move elastic and stretch and squash. Shape it into shape. So this bone, it joins to the lateral surface of the humerus. So it will go on the other side of the humerus, but underneath this huge muscle that we have here. So I think for now we should just hide this guy. Yeah, and then work on the bones. So to have a clear view of the humerus, it it should be somewhere here. So again, using move elastic, if I select my edges and move them in place, it just conforms the way we want it. And this part again, it attaches to the spine, whereas this end flattens up but sits on top of the latissimus and bulges out like that. That's okay. So it goes all the way down here, and then this end sort of comes out a little bit and then narrows back as it comes down to the femur. So, so yeah, so that's sort of shape. And now we may sculpt a little bit to give it a better shape. So it has that volume. So if you solo this, just making sure the brush needs an auto mask, backface masking, and let's just dynamesh this. Geometry dynamesh. Yeah, that's cool. There we go. So if I remove solo for a second, obviously it's got a lot of thickness here, which is probably not required. So just move it a little bit, or in fact just dig it in. So we do want a bit of a spindle-like shape, but not this much. Smooth it out, smooth it out. Okay, and to make it look a bit like a muscle by giving it some fibers. Not that it matters, because once I zero mesh It's all gonna go away anyway. Alright, let's see how this is looking. Pretty good. Move topological. Just give it a little bit more shape. So narrow, really narrow at the top. So that's where it ends, right? Where the scapula ends, and then yeah, it comes out like that. So nice little deltoid. Uh, see, remesh this. Just say 2. Don't worry about groups right now because they're far apart. And Control W, Control. I can just mask off one side. First, remove symmetry. Mask off one side, Control W, and then you got 2 separate groups. Okay. So what can we do next? The triceps. So this is a huge muscle group. So there are like 3 kind of muscles that kind of form this triceps. We'll just do it as one. And just reading on the app, it just starts on the medial surface of the humerus, lateral head on the lateral surface of the humerus, on the tricep line. Okay, so connects to the humerus. So yeah, while we have this selected, again, our trusted sphere comes out, and I'm going to split the unmasked so we don't have to rename the deltoid again. So split, unmasked, and then we got the deltoid 1, rename that to triceps. I'm going to hide the deltoid so we can see the humerus, maybe also the latissimus. So let's get move elastic. You know what? Remember I briefly removed symmetry. Let's do that again. Split, unmasked. Did we duplicate this? How come? I don't know how we did that, but it looks like we got that and that. So let's delete, 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 delete. Where's delete, delete? Okay, so we're back to deltoid and split on mass points. Yeah, that's better. But we don't have the duplicate now. Yeah, nothing to worry. There's another way we can do that. Rename, and we'll call this triceps. And see plugin. So there's this plugin called Subtool Master, not Scale Master. Where's Subtool? Subtool Master. And then there's the mirror, and you just click OK, and we get it mirrored across. And so yeah, just quickly go to move elastic, move, click X, so symmetry is on. Solo. So as you can see, I use different ways to do this. Sometimes I use the move brush to scale and squash, and sometimes I just use the move elastic. So yeah, there are different ways to do the same thing in ZBrush. And so it sits right on top of this humerus and attaches just under this elbow. In fact, the tendons, they do kind of go on top of the elbow like that. Topological. So this also attaches to, I think, the scapula, the other end, but goes under the deltoid that we did before. Um, yeah, just checking the reference. So it just stops at the edge of the deltoid here, like that. So the deltoid basically tells us where to stop. So you don't want to go any further in. As soon as it touches the deltoid, you know that's the end of the thickness of that end. And then the same here, so it narrows out, narrows, so it's not wider than the elbow itself. And then it gets all the mass in the middle. So that's the shape. So can go up here. So this one's got like three pieces of muscle. So the first one goes like that, and then there's this big, really big muscle, and then there's this slightly smaller one. So like that. So let's dynamesh this and give it more detail so we can see the creases better. Okay. So let's just take dam standard and draw our lines. So this way we know exactly how we're shaping this. So this is the really thick muscle. And also I think if we move this down, this actually connects to this part. You see this little groove in the humerus? So that's where this one comes out of. Whereas the other bit, it comes from the scapula. So take the clay buildup and give it more mass like this. And also the split is a little bit higher, so somewhere there. Because this is the biggest of the three. So that one actually goes a bit underneath. Also, let's just take the alpha 6 for sculpting these. And there's a light shape that we need to give here. So it does a bit of that. So more volume at the top there. Like that. Just gonna smooth out a little bit. Let's see how that reads. So when you show the deltoid, again. Yeah, that covers a bit of that, which is correct. And I think this can go further down like that. So yeah, so that's the shape. I can also use the pinch to get them even closer. So P pinch, just you see the creases coming closer together, and then see how it reads. Okay, let's Dynamesh and then zero mesh this. Yeah, it does capture the creases well enough. Alright, the next one. Okay, there's the deltoid acromial, which again starts on the acromion, which is, I think, the edge of the scapula, the spine, and then it inserts into the lateral surface of humerus. So that would be the inside. No, not the inside, just where we had the deltoid, the front part. So this would be the lateral. So it goes right under here. And all of these little muscles, they add to the overall shape of a lion when we sculpt the model. For this, what I could do is simply duplicate this. So reset, control, and drag, and split this unmasked. Squish it so it's smaller in length and also, oops, yeah, it's like that. Okay, just flatten, flatten, bring it out, rotate. Okay, so I'm going to keep the deltoid so it's visible because this one starts a little bit under and part of it sort of goes over as well. So I think this also indicates that the deltoid could be shaped a little bit differently. Let me move this like that. And then this will fit in somewhere here. But it goes a little bit under the deltoid. So yeah, just overlaps like that. Just there. just smooth tapping the edges, because we create a little crease there. So where we have these intersections, we can just pull it out. So it sits on top like that, and then we can adjust the width a little later. There, there we go. Well, topological is better for this. Nice. Also, maybe give it a little bit of an inflate right at these edges where it's too narrow. Because we pushed and pulled it so much, we will lose a bit of volume when we do that. Smooth it out, and what I do is really remesh it because, again, because of all the pulling and pushing. Okay, so this is called deltoid spinal. So rename that. No, that's wrong. Sorry. This is called deltoid acromial, and the deltoid that we had before, that's the deltoid spinal. Because it I think it's because it attaches to the spine of the um, scapula, whereas this attaches to the end bit. So there we have it. So that's like the upper arm pretty much done. Okay, so we have a very interesting bone here. By interesting, I mean hard to pronounce. Okay, the brachioradialis. So this is the one that connects to the radius bone, the end of radius bone, and it originates from the end of the lateral supracondylar crest of the humerus. Supracondylar crest, that looks like this part. This is a crest. So under there, it goes all the way across to the edge of the radius. So for this, maybe you should, yeah, we should do something like a curved tube. So let's grab that. We'll adjust the size, but for now, just checking. Why is it not? Oh, did it? Does it? I'm checking if the mirror is working or not. It isn't. Now it is. If it isn't working, how did it work? There, no idea. Okay, let's do it this way. Okay, that's better. Okay, so when it does that, we can go to stroke and make sure that bend end is also selected. So it bends at both ends. So it has to start there. So it starts just where that crest is and goes all the way across, but slightly in the front still, like that. Okay. Also, I'm going to reveal the other muscle that we hid. Where is it? This one, the brachiocapillus, because this sort of sits on top of that. Okay, that's a good start. The no, stroke, curve, functions, and delete. And we will split unmasked. And we'll rename this as follows. Brachioradialis. Brachioradialis. That's right. In fact, just let's get the move uh, and scale him a little bit this way so it's flat. Right. Also, maybe with this guy, we can cover up the gaps. And this guy overlaps a little bit like that. So this part comes out. So where does he actually hide? So it goes under the tricep. So it needs to come out and then hide away under the tricep. So it's probably quite a broad muscle at the ends and narrows to the radius. So comes out and then goes in where the tricep is. Let's let's see. Not the best way of doing this. Okay, so once we know where it hides away, I mean a lot of this again is it'll have overlaps, so it does narrow quite a bit at the bottom. Okay, all right. Here we're gonna adjust. This is probably how it attaches. Doesn't matter because all of this is hidden by other muscles. But the key is to know where it attaches to, which we got right, and the rest we can also just bring the triceps up if that's easier, so that it sits on top of this, and then push this guy down. That is better. And then this end can come out, and this guy actually sits right next, yeah, like that. That will help shape that muscle. The other thing is we need to also bring this brachialis, not brachialis, but whatever this is called, out a little bit like that. So it sits on top of the deltoid. So that needs a bit more volume like that. Yeah, you see, that looks good. I won't be doing anything. We don't need to zero mesh this. It's already pretty neat topology, nice cylindrical topology, so leave it for now. Does it look right from the front? Well, actually, it needs to have a bit of a twist. So if you took the elastic and just did that, that's the shape we want. So the back end comes out and the front, yeah, like that. So you see that twist? Flatten it a little bit, just like that. Okay, that's a nice shape for that. Okay, so let's see what muscles we need to cover up these bones. Also, keep glancing at that little silhouette top left. That should start making sense as we put more and more muscles down. Alright, so we got this extensor capri radialis, and then there's the extensor digitorum communis, and there's the extensor digitorum lateralis. I'm going to combine all of these ones. So there are one and then ulnaris. So all it is these are a lot of extensor muscles that we have on our forearm, and they get uh they'll be they'll just join to different parts at the bottom, but they have the same origins, which is that crest this crest of the humerus. So yeah, we can just do one big muscle group that goes all the way down and then pull different branches out to where they attach. That's what we're gonna do. So best way again, let's do curved tubes, but we'll do something a little bit different. So let's go to stroke, And curve modifiers, say curve fall off. So at the moment it's just the same, isn't it? So if you just say size right now and then click it, it does that because um, yeah, because it's just 0 to 1. But if we say the top end is actually something like this and the bottom is quite low, but there's also a curve. Let's see how that looks. So that, yeah, that's nearly what I wanted. In fact, that's exactly what I wanted. So you see, so I'm just saying not all the way 0 either end, slightly wider there, but quite fat in the middle, and that will give us a starting point of what we're trying to achieve. Okay, now we can just say stroke, curve functions, delete, split the unmasked points, and then we got our muscle group. We'll rename it shortly, but let's first move him in place. So like that. So it covers up all of this. Even most from here, it just starts to go wider. So there's going to be a different muscle just behind here. I'll keep that part separate for now. But all of these extensors, 4 of them, we're just going to club together and call it just extensors. So we have this going all the way to the side. So it twists all the way from this bone to the radius to the ulna. There's a lot of little tendons and nerves that go on top of this to give our veins, but we're not going to do them. We're just going to do the muscles because those can be sculpted on top of the surface. Again, we want to be just adjacent to this, the previous muscle we created. Yeah, you've got to love Move Elastic. It's such a useful brush. So that gives the shape, but I think we we need to bring it a little bit in for the flexors, because I think the flexors come this way, so I think this needs to come in and make some room for the flexors. Okay, so let's see how that's looking. So yeah, it's I admit it's quite simplified. This is basically 4 different muscles that we have tried to make into one. But that's okay, this is a simplified anatomy. Mm, It might actually be useful to divide this into 2 instead of one piece, and that's because of the way these are attached. Actually, let's do that. So we'll separate the bit that goes to the left with the one that goes to the right. There are two that go this way and two that go right. Because that way we will be able to get a crease, natural crease between the two. Smooth out. And actually it doesn't come all the way down either, so we need to shorten it. So it's just these two bones, the radius and the ulna, just like on our forearms. So just under here. Right, there we go. So move it a little bit there. Now there's just enough room for one more muscle. So we should simply duplicate this. Control W, so we have different groups of these. And elastic, this one in place. And this comes out to the ulna. That's a better way to manage. We're still simplified. We made two bones into, we made four into two. But this will make more sense when we come to modeling, or CFX for that matter. Just remember it sits on these bones. Inflate the ends if they're too narrow. There. Okay. The only thing is the volume of this, probably too much. So bring it in. Yeah, that's better. And this guy is a little bit too flat. So I'm going to just give it a little volume there. Okay, that's good. So now this makes sense because we have one muscle group that going this way and the other going to the ulna. So as these bones move, twist, these muscles will twist accordingly. Check the silhouette. Does it make sense? Yeah, much better indeed. So we got those back ones now, the flexors, and these are three, uh, two on the outside, and I think two, yeah, and then there's the, yeah, okay. So there's big muscle group called flexor capri ulnaris. That's the key one. So let's get that guy in, and then between that and these muscles, there's a little bit of gap that is filled by another flexor. So what shall we do? Maybe just duplicate this fella. Let's just keep them this way. So duplicate first, turn around, we'll reshape him. Okay, and split the unmasked points back here. So it is much more narrower at the top because there's not a lot of bone to attach to, just this bone, the edge that forms the elbow, and it actually has a little. There are two attachments. One is here, the other goes around to the. I think. Let me check. Yeah. So the two heads of the humerus. So if we just solo it for a bit, and actually, what we can do is when we just click that and shift click so everything else is hidden, and then reveal just the skeleton. Let's see what it's doing. Right, so one goes here, and then let's dynamesh this really quickly. Snake hook. Okay, I get it. What's your point? Yeah, there. So this goes around like that. Maybe not exactly like that, but the idea is it's as it moves this, we see uh, a lot of movement happening here. So part of it, and one end is stuck on that elbow. So it helps with the extension. Maybe that's why it's called an extensor or flexor. Sorry, because of the flexibility it gives. I don't know. But whatever the reason, that's the actual shape of it. And it goes. We can just end in. The ending is fine where it is actually. Give it a little bit of volume. Okay, then move elastic so it's attached. I'm also going to take trim dynamic here to shape it. There. So whoever tuned in today, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for those 2 likes. Let's continue with this lion. I'm gonna try and finish all of this front leg, and then in the next stream we can do the back leg, and finally the necks and the skull, the muscles on the face, and then be done. So I'm not gonna go too much in detail with the paws and stuff. We're gonna be pretty generic with it. Right now, let's reveal everything. Let's rename this guy and call him Flexor Ca Carpi ulnaris. Flexor Carpi ulnaris. And we also have these that we haven't renamed. So I'm just gonna call these extensor. Oops. Extensor ulna, so because it attaches to the ulna, and external extensor radius, maybe radialis, just to sound a bit posh. Extensor radialis and extensor ulnaris. Yeah, let's say ulnaris. Made that up because technically these are again further divided into two, which I'm going to actually do now. So we shall maybe die. Hang on. How come we have two of these? Sorry, this is not extensor radialis. This is I shouldn't have renamed that. That's the brachioradialis. So rename this brachioradialis. Okay, and this is just extensors. Extensors. Cool. Yeah, let's leave it at that. So we got that. So there's one extensor that needs to go in the middle there, but I think we closed the gap up, so I'm not gonna do that one. But we need to address the inside part of the leg. So this is called the palmaris longus, and it goes right under the foot, one end of it, and the other just to the side of the posterior surface. Sorry, the humerus. So, so pretty much the same starting point, but it goes all the way like under here. So let me do that. I'm gonna stop where the metatarsals are because there's no need to do these under there it's not like we're going to use it in CFX or modeling. So we're going to modify this a little bit. So once again, I'll take the curve with the same profile as before and then draw like that. Make it a little bit smaller, maybe not that small. All right, and move the ends in place. Okay, something like that. Okay, let's delete the stroke and start sculpting this guy. Just gonna close this gap on this side. Uh, okay, just pulling apart, stretching, filling that gap. So obviously the ends can't go any wider than that. It's just as wide as the humerus, the end of the humerus. And then I can just see how it's looking from the front. Yeah, that's more like it. Yes, that's it. And we're gonna use some filler geometry to go on these four. So, because basically there's not a lot of muscle there, it's just nerves and yeah, some kind of uh, just cylindrical geometry to just some spheres, elongated spheres. We can just cover up these fingers, and this part is the skinniest part of the lion, so there's not a lot of muscle, so we just go straight. It's a lot of tendons that will connect to the bottom. So overall, I'm pretty happy. I just need to narrow down some of these muscles. Like this will be somewhere there, right? Just about. Just have a little bit of a gap between these so we can get a clear crease when we model it. And we need to zero mesh this one. Smooth out a little bit. This guy is also bothering me a little bit. Alright, let's see. That's good. Yeah, if there are any more tweaks, we can come back to this later. Let's begin the back leg a little bit. Let's see how far I can take it today. Oh, I just got a third like for this video, so thank you very much. Or shall we go under? We'll do the torso. So pectoralis, how about that? Oh, but we needed the clavicle, haven't we? We needed to set the clavicle for that, but shall we? Is this usable? Should I bring the ribs down? Yeah. Yeah, let's do these ones. Sternum, tendus line, insertion, lower end of the ridge on the inner surface of the humerus. Okay, these are gonna go to the inner surface, inner humerus. So let's do this. First of all, these could be like that, and then we join. This forms like a U. Let's take the tube, and I'm going to, yeah, not do that, or reset and remove size. So it's just the default. Take this end, bring it here. And another thing we can do is once we set one end where we need it to be, which is somewhere here, the side of the humerus, stroke, curve functions, not functions, curve, I think, click elastic, and that will extend this. Now just turn off elastic and move it in place. Reduce the brush size, and I think that's a good size. Yeah, cool. Just say stroke, curve functions, delete and split unmasked points, remove transparency, and alt click to select the subtool. And here I'm going to simply smooth a little at the top, move topological. In fact, just get the trim dynamic, dynamesh it first. Okay. smooth solo so we can flatten the other end. So that's both sides flattened. Smooth. Okay, let's see how this is looking. Let's take the move brush and adjust it so it has a little bit of a curve like that. And we want the end to be a little bit narrow as well because it joins to the side of the humerus. So it'll have a little bit of a twist for it to be able to do that. Something like that. I'm going to also flatten at the top and smooth out. Okay, so that's the pectoralis descendens. So the next one is like a single, where it actually is one piece, but we'll keep it separate. So control, move it down, goes a little bit lower, so just under this, but it takes up a lot more volume. So now that they're separate groups, we have less risk of joining them. So the angle of this is it will have to go horizontal, conform with the rib cage. Technically, technically these are actually attaching to the sternum, but our sternum is quite far away, so I need to fix that. And also, what it could also mean is, as per my reference, I should probably pull these up because this is the angle that we are looking for. So I'll have to add one more rib cage that goes one rib, or which acts like our collarbone, and then the angle is this way. So yeah, it's not too far off, to be honest. just need to add that one rib. Okay. The only thing is this, it starts at the top here, so let's pull that one up. So more pectoralis. This is split. Let's split this. Split unmasked points, and we rename this as it's also one of the pecs. Pec pectoantebrachialis. Pecto pectoantebrachialis. And then I can dynamesh it. And this guy also. Move in a bit. Okay, geometry, zero mesh. Just much more easier to move them around when they are zero meshed. Okay, so the next one is like a diamond shape one, so this is the pectoralis transversus. I know, just go with the sphere. Subtool, split, unmasked points. Okay, move elastic. Again, they all join to the same bone, which is the humerus. So might as well go transparent mode. Okay, that's that. Now there's another group, couple muscles, pectoralis profundus and the xiphi humeralis. Okay, so this will start to sit on this abdominal muscles. So pectoralis profundus, we can maybe do a fancy stroke method. Stroke size and say not quite like this, but do that. So move topologic. Just need to close up so to make sure I'm attaching it to the humerus, the inside of the humerus. That's where all of these muscles go. It's okay if there's an overlap. I'm just more interested in getting the attachments correct. Because a lot of these muscles will be further simplified when we do our rigging. Some of them we'll completely ignore. But for modeling, yeah, we just the shapes are good enough. Because all of these will help us do the creases when we do the modeling. So let's duplicate this, and this will become the Zif, Zif, Ziphihumeralis. That's what you call these. So pectoral, so different pectoral muscles, and then finally with this that goes on top like that. I could be brave and bring these even closer together, because all of this is just one muscle. There's no gaps technically with this is all one group. I just wanted to have the left and right separate. It's a personal preference. Right, so there's one big muscle that's called the rectus abdominis. It goes to the pubic bone, and I think it attaches to the ribs underneath. So we need to pull these ones out a little bit like that, so that can go under it. This would also use a little shape change like that, a little bit of an angle. So this is like a sheet of muscle that goes on top of that. So how are we going to do this? A lot of stretching. So maybe, is this any good? No. So this is the one which, yeah, this is the one muscle I'm going to do as, because it's in the center. So it'll be right in the middle like that. So no left and right for this one. Elastic, just I think about there. And this end goes to one of the ribs. So under, as long as we depict it this way, that it's going under the muscles, that should do it. Just going to split, unmasked. Oh, this is not even. Ah, right, it's okay. So split hidden. I'm going to shape it slightly so it's more like a non-oval but squarish. Fill that gap. This here. And going to go straight to zero measure. That's good enough. Okay, let's just do a turntable just to appreciate what we've done so far. Okay. Sai Lahari, all the best. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, I just took a short break to look at my comments. So, yeah, I think we made a very good progress today. I want to carry on for another 15 minutes. So, let's see what we can cover in that. So, first of all, let me rename this. This is the rectus abdominis. Rectus abdominis. And then we got these two. I kind of combined this. So one is Ziphi humoralis, the other is pectoralis profundus. Um, maybe if oh, there are same subgroups. So if I just auto group them, polygroups and auto groups, we can then separate them. So split, hidden, and let's rename this guy pectoralis. Sorry, not this is not the pectoralis. This is the Ziphi XIPHI humoralis. Ziphi humoralis. And this can be renamed pectoralis profundus. Pectoralis profundus. And I can smooth it out a little bit later. They both could use a remesh. So let's do that. Geometry, theory measure. There we go. Much better. That's it. We can make this even flatter because this, yeah, it sort of merges into that other muscle. Okay, great. The only problem is this one here because that this is good. Sorry, where's the other one? Oh, we're missing one of the muscles. Yeah, there, that's better. And this one needs to be needs to cover the gap like that. So this is equivalent to the pectoral muscles that we have. That's better. Okay, now let's move forward. So there's, for the back leg, we'll start with the sartorius. So sartorius, it connects this iliac crest, the top of the crest, and goes all the way to the inner part of the bone here. So just looking at my reference, ligament medius surface to the tibia, the surface of the tibia at the tibial crest. So it will connect to the tibia, this crest here. And the best way to do this is curve. So a small brush is a very small muscle, long, stretchy, but thin. Do it like this. Move it in place. Also change the stroke to something linear. Or actually reset. That's better. Bring it closer to the crest. It's obviously not that thick from all angles. So what we can do is, after we've removed it, the stroke, just bring the move brush, and from this angle, yeah, just do that. So that looks more like a muscle. And now with move elastic, just move the ends, something like that. Bring it up. Maybe this goes a little bit to the top, slightly different angle. Okay, and what else can we do? Let's just rename this for now and we move to the next one. So this will be sartorius. Sartorius. Great. Now can move this in place like that. Best to just remesh it to have better topology like that. So the next one is the tensor fascia, and then there's also the gluteus medius. So let's do these two. So yeah, this is interesting muscle. Um, it has a fan-like shape, so it joins these two and then sits on top of another muscle that we'll do later. So how are we going to do this? Split. So one end goes to the iliac crest, the other to this tibia head, and then we just pull the rest so it gets that shape. So it stops somewhere here where there's another muscle that it attaches to. So these two muscles I think are joined by a tendon. Yeah, so right under this is where you have the your quad muscles, quadriceps. So this kind of goes on top of that. We should have probably done the quadriceps, yeah, quadriceps first. That's okay, let's do it now. And the quadriceps is an interesting little spindle-like muscle. So we can use our stroke technique for this. So stroke, curve modifiers, size, and so we want the ends to be narrow, but not as narrow as that. And then because the spindle-like shape, we just say it's, yeah, that's how we want it. And then we can join this end to this end like that. Whoa, that didn't seem to work. Why? Oh, because I didn't enable size. That's not what I wanted. Why is that? So, hmm. Okay. So that's top. This is the end. So I did something wrong. So this should be something like that. Yeah, this is the shape. See? Nice. So basically for all the muscles we can just draw these shapes going forward. A neat trick to get muscles drawn with curves. So this goes on the inside of, I forgot the name of this bone already. So this is tibia, so this would be, what is this? Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna check the name of this bone. So sorry, I've been calling femur the tibia. So that was the femur. So yeah, we do have to connect to the tibia. And I think even the one before, it needs to come a little bit down on this head. We'll do that in a second. So this goes like that. And then, yeah, that's the connections are correct. But I'm going to just increase the brush size a little bit. So we have thicker quad muscles. So stroke, curve functions, delete. Now we shall move topological and scope this guy. Also, obviously, split unmasked points, rename quadriceps, triceps. Okay, so this goes at the front like that. So a lot of this comes on top of the patella and then really expands to the front, this angle. So once we have this in place, it narrows down here actually quite a bit. So this is very thin, this tendon, and then the muscle is around here. And now this muscle now sits on top of the quadriceps. And I'm going to geometry, zero mesh this, and do the same geometry, zero mesh, and then move it in place on top of that bone. So again, this also connects to the tibia, not the femur. So let's select this guy, pull him down to there. Sartorius. Okay. Very sweet. So the one thing is the sartorius it needs to still be kind of next to the quad, so it'll have to be on top of it. So the quads can move a little bit in here because I think the angle of the sartorius is already pretty good. Maybe just a little bit there. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so we can now do the gluteus medius, which again originates from the wing of the ilium crest of the our pelvis. Mm, this- and then it'll just go to the femur. So best thing to do is drop in the sphere, out, split, unmasked points, go back, just move elastic and sculpt in place. So it goes under this muscle. We'll rename these in a minute. And this is where we need to tweak the shape of this bone, because this muscle, sorry, because it, it's somewhat like that. And now the gluteus. So it'll have to attach to this vertebrae where the tail begins, from here to here. Yeah, that's the shape we want. So from the crest to that spine, but from the side, it doesn't go as far back. It's either that or something else overlaps on top. Okay. Now technically this goes all the way to, it's much longer than this. I'm just going to pull a little bit out so it just attaches to that femur. So it ends where the femur ends. There we go. Just going to shape this guy accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to quickly zero mesh this guy. So there's better topology. That's good. Let's look at the whole thing. So the angle of the sartorius, I can bring it a little bit forward. That's more like the silhouette I was after. So we can do the flank fold as well right now, just to, it just looks so weird without it. And for this, let's just get our quad fill tool, quad fill, curve, this curve, yeah, curve quad fill, and take a tiny brush size, and do something like this. So maybe elastic stroke will help. Also bend end. Reduce it further. Make it nice and thin. So it goes a little bit more inward. So it's almost like it's on that sartorius, whatever, I forgot already what it's called, but that muscle. And from the top, it just attaches to the belly. Just the end needs to go there. Oh, we have to bring the belly out of it. That's fine. And then this is just straight. You can smooth it out later, I suppose. I think it could go even further like that. Okay, stroke. We need to split this. Split unmasked points. I've got two, so let's delete one. Mm, this is inverted. What happened with this? Why is this not working? Ah, there. Okay, we got it back. So carefully, I'm going to split unmask. No, actually, first delete stroke, split unmasked points, and then we have this. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there. But yeah, but now it looks a little bit nicer. I mean, without that, it was looking very odd for my eyes. So just re-remesh this guy. There we go. And this abdomen, we can use topology. Move topological to cover up some of that. And then this from this angle, just make it straight. Okay, that is so much better. So let's look around. So yeah, we have to keep going with the quads and the glutes and all the other muscles, and that's it. Will be done. I'll also do a bit of facial muscles and also the nose and the other bits. So that's all in the next session. And things like tail and these um, paws and feet in general, will just be very generic with them. In fact, I won't be making any muscles, but when we do the skin, we'll just fill these with some geometry, some filler geometry, and then start sculpting the skin. So that's it for today's stream. And for my Indian audience, happy Vinayak Chavti. Enjoy Vinayak Chavti or Ganesh Chaturthi, whichever you like to call it. I'm gonna have some fun with the family myself. So thank you all for joining this stream today. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you next week. Just want to have a nice side pose before I end it. All right, guys, bye.